Got to be careful. The bumps here can get you every time. Entering the corner, exiting the corner.
Fantastic. This is GT Racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God! Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the final race of the NASCAR iRacing season. 35 weeks brings us here to Phoenix to cap off what has been an enthralling 2020 edition of NIS. This is the Open Series, of course, and while the championship's been wrapped up, that was clinched a while ago by Garrett Maines. He walks in here with a 1,400 point advantage, but plenty of bragging rights still to play for before they take a break from this season for a couple of months before we head back to the Daytona 500 next year. As always, you'll see it all live here on the iRacing Esports Network, presented by SimSpeed TV. My name is Ryan Jones, and alongside me, as always, Justin Prince and Jay Kennedy is behind the scenes as well. So, Justin, we're at Phoenix here for the final race. In my opinion, good to finish off the season at Phoenix. I don't know about you, though. What do you think?
It's going to be an interesting race, to say the very least. It's not an easy racetrack. It's technically classified as a short track, yes, Ryan, but it's also one where it's known for longer runs and the need to save tires, because if you don't have a car set up to be able to adjust to the hot track temperatures usually expected here, as well as to how this circuit can play out, you're in for a bad time. It's a bit more on the cooler side tonight, yes, but for these competitors, if they don't have that grip together, they're going to be off. 26 flats are going to be the name of the game early on for many of these drivers tonight. And for many more, they're fighting for not just prime, but also for a potential top 5 points run. Tanner Love, Wesley Pistol, Ty Polito came into the night all tied in the respective points, just about nearly, all with a shot rather for a top 5 run of the championship. In other words, for some of these competitors, this may be the difference tonight between if they finish outside the top 5 or division, or even in the conversation for a division championship this year.
A number of these drivers as well have booked their spot into the Pro Series, which will run beginning in a couple of weeks' time, I believe. For the 20 drivers, or 40 drivers that compete there, 20 of them will go into 2021 in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. So a lot of these guys just trying to get their eye in now as well and really build up for their speed and get their act together before that comes. There'll be racing Xfinity cars there, though, but you've got to make sure your racing eye and mind is sharp heading into what will be a very critical season for them. Garrett Maines, one of those drivers. He's currently fastest in qualifying. I think he might stay there with only 8 seconds left to go in this session. 156 laps ahead of us at Phoenix today. And you mentioned the long runs could play a part. If drivers can keep themselves off each other and the walls, we'll definitely see some green flag stops as we take a look at your starting grid for the final race of the season. It is Garrett Maines that gets himself pole. Boyd Hogan will start alongside him. Alex McCollum and Christopher Cornell on row 2. Patrick Moose and Christopher Pfeiffer starting 5th and 6th ahead of Joseph, JC Nobriga and Will LaRue Sr. Sean Powell and Matt Forcarp in 9th and 10th.
Christopher Hill, one of the setup builders to keep an eye on throughout 2021, potentially starts at 11 tonight with CJ Oliveira in 12th position representing Rocket Racing Setups. Reese Bayham represents Lowline Racing from 13th alongside Gary Sexton from Elite Sound Esports. He's one of the drivers moving up from second splits in the top split for tonight. Jonathan Hernandez 15th with Wesley Pistol for Lou. You have to keep an eye on. He'll start in 16th. Needs a consistent run tonight to secure a potential top 5 of the points. Justin Levine starts in 17th with Vicente Salas running in 18th, one of the pro drivers for the iRacing Rallycross Series, with Max Cookson, the winner from Top Split action back in the springtime, here on the iRacing Esports Network, starting alongside Kyle Souza.
Miguel Bento and Scott Crump are on row number 11, Johnny Baldridge and Jacob Hole behind them. Jake Matheson and Ryan Carlisle on row 13, Dakota Inman and Ossian Walsh, so 27th and 28th. Keith Bridgman, Eduardo Oliveira, Robert Padovich, and William Amshoff round out our 32 cars for Phoenix Raceway today. Weather for these drivers, it is actually quite cool considering we are in the Arizona desert. It's only 29 degrees Celsius, 85 degrees Fahrenheit. The track temp there, Justin, that a bit surprising, or was that what we've seen all week long?
What's more towards, because it's November, it's going to be more on the cooler side. If it was, say, in the springtime, we'd probably see it more towards the 100-degree mark. In the iRacing Day format, say in May, you would see it at 120 degrees. It's just how the weather plays out a little bit here at this racetrack, but it means one thing. There's going to be a decent amount of grip compared to the spring potentially, but also it's still going to be one where you're going to see, I think, a decent amount of fall off because it's not an easy track to balance, and it's not going to be an easy track to be able to try and secure a victory because that man at the head of the field, Boyd Hook and Garrett Maines, rather, this is one of his best career tracks. When you give him the lead, it's near impossible to pass him. It's been seen time and time again in competition here in the past couple of years.
And this is a track where it can be hard to pass as well. Despite being a class as a short track, they only get the one formation lap here at Phoenix, which means that iRacing.com Ford Mustang is going to peel off to pit road, and Garrett Maines will have control of the field. One last race in 2020. Green flag is in the air, and it is a great shot for Garrett Maines. Boyd Hogan as well, going to move down to the inside to cover off row 2. Going to get through the first corner cleanly.
Nice clean launch for all the drivers. One of the places to keep an eye on potential trouble just happened in turn 2. Jonathan Hernandez brings up the quick first caution of the race.
The dogleg wide open for these drivers. You can go 3, 4, 5 wide if you wish, but you've got to funny yourselves back in to some form of normality for turn 3. What happened this time through the dogleg? Or was it even on the exit of turn 1? Let's find out.
It's going to be right about here where you'll see drivers either push up or do this. Because if you exit the corner too low, you'll likely snap around the back end of the race car. Several times as well today, you may see drivers end up carrying too much speed off the corner and slamming to the outside safer barrier. That's going to be about trying to find that balance today here at this racetrack, as you see right here. Just way too tail happy to start the race.
What's with the extra turn 1 at Phoenix? Been finding this week is very slippery, Justin. Why?
Well, we talked about naturally here at Phoenix, it can be very loose in some cases because of the hot track temps. But the main thing with the cooler temps is you're carrying a lot of speed off the corner, Ryan. A lot more than the springtime even, because around that time it was more so maybe around the 27-second mark. We're about 26 flats on the short run. Could see a ton of fall off, yes. But it's also one where I think at the same time, if you don't have that car rotating well enough to be able to carry all that momentum off the corner without lifting off, you're going backwards even with this downforce. The shocking thing is, 3 drivers have decided, you know what, I want to top off on gas just in case, go to the back, and settle on in, because this is a track where a few drivers did have a long night. to say the very least, in this split when they ran Wednesday night, where there were several caution flags.
Yeah, putting yourself towards the back isn't always a bad idea, especially in NIS competition. The races are long, and, you know, this place has a precedence for cautions and incidents. You don't want to get caught up in one early on. You can be there at the end. You can give yourself a shot at a good result. Pretty quick caution period here because there's no cars that are a lap down. So we get the one-to-go signal when we cross the stripe there. You'll also notice start-finish line is where it used to be before 2018, I believe. 2017 was the last year they had it there. And then it was moved, again, I think, in 2018 to be on the exit of Turn 1 between there and the dogleg, which is a very interesting spot. And I can't wait for iRacing to get it updated because heading into the dogleg off a restart going to provide some spice. But for now, start-finish line is on the exit of Turn 3 and the entry to Turn 1, where it was for so many years. Alright, let's try again. Let's go racing once more. It still Mains, it's still Hogan, your top two. There's been no change there. Up through the gears. Another good jump, in fact. It looks like a carbon copy of the first start.
Exactly. Hopefully it's not a carbon copy of the exit of the corner for some of these drivers. It's much more stable for some competitors here. Now the main thing is that dog leg you talked about. We'll see drivers fanning down there all the way down to the inside safer barrier in some cases, trying to set up a run to get to the inside into Turn 3. Because if you get yourself a good position to try and get the pass, you'll likely be able to stick. The main thing that's going to be tough, though, is as the tires wear out, the more drivers will be able to try and defend a little bit as this race goes on. If you keep it side by side by this part of the racetrack, you can make a move like we just seen with Salas.
Check out Patrick Moose right now. Running up there in P5. He's got Will LaRue Sr. behind him. Christopher Pfeffer up there as well. The 25's going to find a spot in line. And look behind is Sean Powell. Find some good momentum off the corner. They're all trying to find a way to the inside right now. But one thing I love about Phoenix is you can run off the bottom. And you can find time when you're trying to defend a spot. So right now, look at 15 car, Sean Powell, that predominantly blue scheme. He's going to get a very good exit off the corner here if he hadn't have shot a little bit wide.
The thing is, depending on the type of car you have, you can carry a bit of momentum on that top line. It's just the tough part of it's so bottom dominant in the first corners of this racetrack, because if you don't stick to that yellow line, you're not likely going to hold on to the spot. Last year, you could do it a little bit. Now, you're going to be in trouble if you have that situation. Looking like his car, though, is a bit more on the, at least struggling on corner entry portion, a bit more too tight under braking. That's costing him a bunch of time and losing him a chance to even duck down to get to the bottom side.
Well, that 24 of Nobrega, he was struggling even more so, wasn't he? He really couldn't get that car turned. Watching Turn 3 here. As a 24 up the racetrack. That's higher than you want to be. And proven so, as Vicente Salas gets underneath him, takes him 3 wide. And Nobrega loses a bunch on that lap.
Well, Nobrega had to drop back there if you were in that car, because going out of turn 4, the final corner rather, 3 wide, can be a trouble spot. But take a look at Max Cookson. He's headed up and down the race already. A bit of damage you see on that right front, but also just looks like he's struggling a touch coming off the corner, trying to work through this traffic after a terrible qualifying lap.
Started 19th, he's up 4 at the moment. Now he's the one stuck behind Nobrega. There's a couple of quick drivers trying to get their way through the field right now, including him. Jake Matheson as well is +7, a couple spots behind Cookson right now. But now that Nobrega's got himself down to that bottom line, he's finding some pace again, or at least he's able to stick with the group around him. On board with Matheson. There he is, looking to make another move. Well, he's got Gary Sexton right up in front of him. It's tough to find the run, though, isn't it, Justin? To get the exit off the corner and then get down on the next one.
Yes, indeed, it is. And it's a very much momentum-based track, and not what I'm talking about in terms of momentum, in terms of the car, but momentum in terms of you as a person. Because it takes a bunch of laps to get into the proper sense of rhythm and flow to hit your marks, and then be able to set up a move to somebody's inside, say if you're in turns 1 and 2 around this racetrack. A couple of these drivers are definitely getting into that rhythm, but we're seeing the preference of some wanting the challenges starting towards the back, like Matheson will be competing in the Pro Series, compared to, say, his teammate Patrick Moose, who's up inside the top part of the points entering tonight, already secured a top 4 position in this series overall in the standings, who wants to compete for the race win from the get-go, a top 5 car early.
Some drivers are fortunate. This can be a bit of a rhythm track, the way you have to keep your speed up through the corners on the relatively flat banking. Patrick Moose is certainly working very well, him and his car right now. I love this track, Justin. Whenever I come here, for my relative ability, I do quite alright. It's something about the way the corners flow into each other, coming off the turn 1 and then diving it down through the dogleg. Now, let's talk the dogleg, because there's about 400 different lines through there, and we'll probably see all of them being used over the course of this race. Is there one outright faster or preferred one?
In terms of the line, I would say in the dog leg, there isn't specifically, I'd say, but the more preferred line is almost the middle of the dog leg, just about. Some drivers, though, don't want to cut too much down, because depending on your setup, if you hit that track bar against the bottom of the circuit in that dog leg, sometimes it snaps you loose, Ryan. And if your car is set up to that point where when it bottoms out, you spin around, it's not good, to put it lightly.
Oh.
So many drivers try and do it a little bit more lighter, where if it's more aggressive, they risk snapping the car.
What about Christopher Pfeffer? We saw him... Oh, hang on. Caution's come out for the second time today. And it is a 2-car collision in turn 1. That's Scott Crump. Looks like his rear end's found the fence, and Eduardo Oliveira as well. Wonder if he got involved or just had to stop to avoid getting involved. Podium Simulation will tell us what happened.
William Arshoff ended up getting hooked around there. Let's take a look at this, because Arshoff actually pushed up the track a little bit off of turn 4, then ends up hooking him. I don't get this, where it looked like he was trying to go for a later arc and ends up collecting the 27 of Oliveira as well in all of this. So that damage is going to really affect their temp throughout this race, because there's a lot of temps issues when it comes to Phoenix usually. The overheating can cause problems, especially in that dog leg, because you're essentially carrying a ton of speed down there.
Amshoff is going to have some pretty significant damage from that hit with the safer barrier. How good a job did Eduardo Oliveira do, though? He did not get a piece of anything in that. He managed to bring that car to a complete stop, and he will live to fight another day, completely unaffected by any form of damage. That is why. Always brake when you see an incident happening in front of you. But yeah, the dogleg, go back to that point as a couple cars come into pit lane from the back of the field. I've seen a couple of drivers in this race not take it at all and stay on the racetrack proper, if you will. Does that save tyre life a little bit? You know, you're not turning as much, Justin?
I would say yes, a little bit potentially, because here's the thing too, the top line, you're usually going to lose momentum coming off of it, because it's not like, say, a normal corner where you be able to get your momentum back. The thought process is you're taking a shorter distance around. You can get a little bit shorter on that tire wear, so I think a little bit yes, to answer the question. But the main thing is, if you want to be competitive here, you have to take it, because if you don't, you're likely going backwards. But one quick point I want to bring up here, Ryan, though, is the tire limits for tonight. There's 4 total sets available in the pits. On fuel, it's a 1-stomper, in theory. It's a close 1-stomper, but it is one potentially. However, this is a track that can see split strategy when you have cautions, precautions, precautions. And with those extra sets, we may see a lot of back and forths on the calls tonight. Keep an eye on 27th on back on this restart.
We've only run 20 laps so far, and we've run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them under caution. So, give or take. you know, we've not got much on the tyres in a 156 lap race. I would suggest if we went green from here and a caution came out, I would say somewhere around lap 40 or 50, I would come in if a caution flew.
It's just a matter of, will we get a caution around that mark is the big thing here as we're getting ready to go back green.
There we go. It is, again, a good jump from Maines and from Hogan. They are single file. And Alex McCollum able to get clear in third as well this time. Christopher Cornell. And then Patrick Moose is sliding through the dogleg. That rear end trying to get away from him. As on his outside, Will LaRue Sr. finding some great pace. On the cold tyres, he might get him on the outside on the exit of turn 3. 4 he does. That's a good move from car number 19.
Nice, good move so far, and when he usually races in these cars, he is very competitive here, but behind him, it's 2 to 3 wide heading off into the dog leg, and that can be tricky into this part of the racetrack where so many drivers like to go late break, and when you go 3 wide, usually the driver on top gets shuffled about.
There's some action out of the corner, down the straight. It's very easy for that car on the top side to overshoot, drive it in just a little bit too deep. With the banking there, you can't afford to drive it in a little bit too deep because there's nothing to sort of catch you. You just end up shooting up the racetrack and losing a lot of time. Same goes in 3 and 4, which is where we see a lot of incidents when they try to get back from 3 and 4 abreast through the dogleg.
Yeah, at the very least right now, I think Wesley Pistol has to find the bottom line to be able to get a rhythm back here in this moment. Right there does, but say you're in that grouping behind, the more you fight like this at Phoenix, the more you end up losing some time. It's not as much at some air tracks at the 1.5 miles, let's say, but it's enough time where it can break up that rhythm, it can break up your momentum of pushing forward, and can burn up some of your equipment to where you're going to have to take at least a few more laps to be able to regroup and try and close up the gap, which in turn can use up your equipment once more as they're bumping running nearly in the corners. And there they go.
They all stack up, and a lot of them get around it, and we stay green as Nobrega was one of the cars to lose a lot of pace there. Somehow, they escape. That was really messy coming off the corner. And a great job from a lot of people there to recognize the incident and drive around it.
Yeah, that was Nexus Esports as Jacob Hall with the bit of the shove there. That was coming, it looked like almost with how he was giving them up and run in the middle of the corner. But some of these air drivers are starting to shuffle about. You have various teammates for Bobby Dillard's Legacy Esports shuffling in here. You have more Nexus cars shuffling in. And you also, don't forget, have some of the Phase 2 cars who have been really running a ton of races in MAS at the end of this campaign, showing some speed. They still have a car, mind you, in P4, Christopher Cornell, who's surprisingly quick. Back team.
Look at Matheson here. Way down to the bottom. Trying to take him 3 wide, and he will. Oh, he's getting pinched by Cookson. He's struggling to pull it up. Now Cookson gives him some room to work with, and Sean Powell has to settle, and now look behind at Wesley Pistol. Great move from Matheson. He's going to get them both here.
Very well timed in for Nexus Esports. Their wheelhouse, when you think back to throughout the season and throughout the past couple years, is short tracks. A lot of their drivers have a short track racing background, and some of the others who have competed there in the past, and that in turn helps them a ton for these types of races. They look fairly sporty today. Several of their drivers now either migrating towards the top 10 or still inside the top 10. It's just a matter, though, of how the long run pace is going to settle in, Ryan. I think that's the biggest question out of everybody.
Yeah, and for Carper there, cleared Moose, now under pressure from Salas. He's moving forward. Plus 10, make that plus 11. As Moose may be starting to go backwards just a little bit. Now for Carper as well, showing some good pace.
Yeah, outside of Matheson, Salas is one of the biggest movers in the field, plus 11 as you talked about. And I think that just, again, shows some of the speed for Elite Tower Esports here at this track as well, because they've had a history of performing well here with, especially here at Mains. And that helps when you have someone who knows how to build setups like him, who drives the wheels off this car at this type of racetrack, and can win if you give him the pole, because he's so difficult to pass when everyone else gets dirty air. The main important thing, once again, though, is as these laps turn, how will these cars react in about 10 laps or so? That's going to be the biggest question, where if you have fall off go past where we're at already, 1.4 seconds, around that 2-second mark, let's say, you have it significantly fall off more than that, I think, before it slows down, you might be in trouble.
I think TJ Lefaire's in a bit of trouble. Rear end stepping away as he overshoots turn 1. Levine and Matheson will go by him. And Levaire, about 2 laps ago, was glued to the bumper of Salas. Now look at him.
And that's partly just some of the setup knowledge coming in from some of the adjustments throughout the season, right? We mentioned the name Rocket Racing Setups. One of the people who went on to the program, James Mullins, a few weeks back, a part of that organization. And guess who was a big part of some of the setup building at the time before that transition? James Mullins for Nexus Esports. So that speed's helping. Meanwhile, Levine at this point, I think is just saying, you know what? I'm not as quick on this long run so far. Why fight some of these cars? I want to keep this machine clean and just get a positive IR gain, because he's one of the drivers, mind you, who is targeting a Road to Pro run next year.
Well, I mean, Levine is +8. Might get done by Matheson around his outside here, looking from the rearward roof cam of Patrick Moose, and Matheson's going to follow Moose through the dogleg. He is the biggest mover in the field, and you can see why there, as the Nexus man drives around the outside. Caution comes out in lap 34.
Oh, and it's Johnny Baldridge. And it's one of the F5 machines having a really, really rough race. 11-second pit stop before, and just loops it around. Just a self-spin.
Rear end's going to get away from him on the exit of the corner.
Just said over the radio too, Ryan, that it was embarrassing on his part. Just absolutely looped it around. Overcorrected once. Overcorrected again to make sure he didn't come up into the field. That was JC Nobrega he nearly came up into and looped it around the very tail end of the field. That is going to now change up a bit of the strategy. This may open up the floodgates for the pit window.
Lap 35. It's not as straightforward a call as you think. They're all going to come in, but you talk about the 4 tyre sets. I mean, if you keep pitting after 35 laps, you're going to run out. But I am not surprised to see them come in at this point. You don't expect the cautions to keep coming at this rate with the talent of the field. That is a surprisingly easy mistake to make, though, that Baldridge made. Because you're trying to get the car turned as well, down towards the dogleg there. We have had a couple cars stay out, Ryan Carlisle and Robert Padovich.
Well, in the case with Ryan Cardwell, he pit under the last caution, so he can't afford to come down again, because that's an extra tire set loss, so he has to take the gamble and stay out until he gets a period where they can all equalize again on tires. It's Padovich who is the most interesting of them, because he's not yet pit. He might be gambling to try and have the freshest tires on the track. Everybody else, good pit stops in. Oh, by the way, Johnny Baldridge's suffering continues. He missed his pit box on top of everything else.
That's not a mistake you want to make. Again, we can add it to the list of easy to do, but very costly when you do make that error. What if his hard work will go down the drain as Baldridge pits? Lights out the pace car. Carlisle and Padovich will stay out on the racetrack, so Mains will lose the lead of the race, and Baldridge has got to be careful here that he doesn't end up a long way off the pack with this late pit stop. No one a lap down is keeping these cautions very short. If there was a laps car, we'd have an extra lap under the caution for the lucky dog to take place, but not yet.
Yeah, and it can be tricky, mind you, to even lose a lap here unless you get a run of, say, 20, 30 laps minimum. Everyone's just been nearly identical in pace and not just been able to separate. But with these drivers on older tires up towards the front, this is going to get very nerve-wracking, to say the very least. off this jump because tire spin can be a bit of a factor here at Phoenix.
Carlisle then through turn 1, up the racetrack, washes up. Garrett Maines goes through. Look at Padovic dropping like a rock as well. McCollum says thank you very much. Boyd Hogan's going to go through. There's not much these two can do now, but just hope and pray that no one runs into them.
Yeah, and Carlisle just needs to try and hold on with that different strategy for Padovic. Believe he also has been shuffled out a big amount, but that's not a surprise. Those cars were not going to move, to say the very least. CJ Lavere, though, just got stuck behind some of them and lost several positions.
Gives you a bit of a picture as to what might happen if drivers get caught on different strategies in a late race restart. Could be very interesting indeed. There's the lead and 1.5 tenths. McCollum up to second for the first time today. Hogan ran there for every lap before those pit stops.
Oh, car spinning in the middle corner. Jacob Hall.
Caution comes out. Number 4 of the day on just lap 40.
Wow. Want to see if we can take a look at this on the Moen Simulation replay, because for the Nexus Esports driver of Hall here, he nearly snapped in front of half the field. If he didn't do what he did, he was going to wreck the entire grouping. You had Oliveira already spinning towards the back of the field, gone off the racetrack. He got shuffled at last yet again. But it's right about here where he tries to send it on the bottom of the racetrack, misses a little braking mark, and has to try and dodge as cars are still smoking up in front of him. Believe that might have been an air car, pardon me, up towards the front, just a couple of positions up.
Try and grab that again then for you. Yep, there's one spinning.
Yep, that's it.
That was fantastic.
Bento. It's Miguel Bento I was referring to, pardon me, but either way, he's trying it up on the top side, mind you. Close call racing with Hernandez. He does nearly the same thing we've seen with Hall. Gets a little bit of help and just saves it with that little bit of a help from a love tap to the left front fender.
Get him in the left rear, get him in the left front, and favour returned. This caution isn't even good for Carlisle and Padovic either, because they're still going to use up another set if they pit now that they can't afford to use on lap 42. So this is just terrible.
They're not pitting, mind you. So they still are stayed out. Are probably going to be dead last in a few laps. If they get a run long enough, though, they might lose a lap as a result. And this is one of the gambles.
When's the earliest they're going to want to pit for a second set? Halfway?
I'm thinking more so around, say, we pit at 35. So if there's a caution around 70 to 80, I think that's where you see a lot of the drivers come down once again, use their second set. Then the floodgates open up from that point on who uses what sets, especially with the risk for the end of the race. But if you use it too early, I think, Ryan, you're going to be stuck like we just seen. If you use it too late, I don't think you're getting the track position back, because you might not get enough laps to be able to use the tires because it's so hard to pass here.
Well, if you have enough tyre life available to you compared to the rest, you might. We've seen how well even a 15-20 lap difference makes there. Critical lap is about lap 100. Lap about halfway. Again there, laps 70, 80 to make it home on field.
Give or take. Yes. It's still a one-stopper on the gas if it goes green. That's going to be important to keep in mind. But here's the thing. If things continue to be crazy, it's the matter of, will we get to that point? Some of the drivers were wondering, would we get a run long enough to get to 95 laps on the gas? The answer much of the week has been towards the no mark. We'll have to see if this is the yes mark tonight.
Friday night often provides us with some great green flag runs in NIS Open. Let's see if today is no different, as Garrett Maines has nailed these restarts time and time again. Pulls us away to turn 1 with McCollum in close proximity. Sinte Salas is up to P3, by the way. Trying to fend off Boyd Hogan for that spot.
I think Boyd Hogan just going to back off. He's someone who usually thinks big picture here, and from what I can tell, his just wants to see how these settle down. The main thing is, though, for the race lead, because for Alex McCollum, while he is back down to the Pro Series for 2020, trying to get his license back for the Coke Series, one of the main staples of his racing career before that point, short tracks. Caution is out.
One in the fence, that's no brainer. We saw him running towards the front earlier on in this race, but it has now well and truly gotten away from him after qualifying 7th. In the midst of some almost three-wide action coming out of the corner. Well, wouldn't it be surprising if he got some help here?
Yep. Same car, too. I think from before a little bit.
How did he not clip anyone else in that?
I'm not quite sure, but take a look at this. He tries to go for the block, and then Baldridge ends up bumping him because JC actually hits the brakes a ton, almost too much there, to the point where not only is there a bit of a block, but he's also slamming on the brakes to the point where you don't have any time to respond, even if you think about that, where it's crushing in the front nose even more so now for Baldridge.
He's still on the lead lap, so anything can still happen, but this race is just getting harder and harder. Why do we see so many cautions at this track, Justin? In my opinion, it's not that hard of a track to drive. It's a little bit loose on the exits, but very easy to control, especially for these drivers. And it's not as bad as, say, Martinsville or Bristol in terms of, you know, short track beating and banging. Why is there so many cautions, no matter what comes here?
Part of me thinks it's just because you want to be on the bottom so much at one end of the racetrack and want to be able to dive into the corner and carry so much speed at the end of the racetrack, it just leads to some of this attrition where everyone's just trying to pull each other to one mark and everyone's trying to defend so hard that it leads to these cautions. But also you have to think and keep in mind, it's just one of the tendencies when it comes to iRacing, where when it comes to NIS competition, where the intensity level is much more higher, where there's much more on the line, where you have more laps to work with, where you have a lot of teams having goals of winning these races, as well as winning championships, there's a lot more pressure. It's not quite as simple as, say, an A Open or an A Fixed, where you might be having less laps, yes, and have one stopper in the pits in the Open. But it's also one where it's essentially more calmer racing compared to what you may see, because everyone thinks, we got to get points in this situation.
Well, let's see if something clicks in their heads and we can get some green flag running going here. We're not even at halfway. We're just coming up on 1/3 race distance. In fact, we'll hit it in 4 laps time. Maines is loving it. He's been in control. Even with that one restart, he wasn't the leader. Got by those 2 cars with older tires very, very quickly. And I have a feeling he'll power away to the first corner. A few cars starting to show some signs of a bit of wear and tear. Sensei Salas' right rear is looking a bit second best. Here we go. Back green. And Salas has a pretty good launch from 3rd. He should be able to take away 2nd from McCollum here, down towards turn 1.
One of the drivers who are in the conversation in Road to Pro, keep in mind this year, on top of his rallycross experience, taking a little bit of a pro move there. Tried to go for a bit of a squeeze on McCollum, force him higher up the racetrack on the late arc, and that is why he's now got this spot. He doesn't give that squeeze, McCollum likely defends it back. Keep in mind, McCollum does have some left front damage.
Well, Salas racing for Andretti Autosport in the iRacing Rallycross World Championship at the moment. But clearly not affecting his form on the ovals, as Cookson's going to be the next driver to go by McCollum. This has been a really bad restart for him. His pace wasn't that bad on the previous jump. Just been caught napping now and caught offline. Now he's going to find a hole and goes with a switchback on Matheson.
And that's where some of the pro experience comes in and some of the short track experience comes in. He made his racing career by dominating in late models and Legends cars and every single type of short track car on the iRacing service. Races short tracks in real life here and there as well, in a little Legends car as well. So he's got this experience here where usually you see him perform the best at these types of racetracks. it didn't quite transition, it seemed, to the Coke Series in 2020, unfortunately for him, but that raw talent can be there, and it can be seen in races such as this.
That switchback didn't transition too well either. After getting the spot, he immediately lost it again on the other side of the racetrack. Matt Forcarpa's just watching on, waiting for the door to open up for him. Ooh. Further back, though, it's very tight exiting the corner between Patrick Moose and Justin Levine. They were door-to-door, pretty much rubbing doors. Off of turn 4 and again through turn 1. Levine struggling to keep that car on the bottom.
Yeah, just sparking up a lot of that track bar hitting the racetrack. I think really it's just a matter of just getting into a rhythm. Kyle Souza's not going to back down. It's not his usual tendency. It's just a matter of making sure once that move is made right here, just take a deep breath, get into the proper rhythm, and work with effort. I hope that the friendship from working together in the past helps him.
Kyle Souza's going to get by him as well in a minute. See, right now, Levine could just let off and get in behind Souza and regather his momentum, but he's not going to do that. In fact, he's going to get some momentum on the top on the exit and should be able to get back in line now. Oh, he's got in way too deep. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
he pulled it up quite nicely, didn't he, Justin?
I think Souza actually had to back off to make sure he didn't hit the top of the wall, and that's what, in part, also killed his chance to bounce back for the run.
Well, yeah, I was watching from Chopper Cam, and Levine just blew away from Souza in the braking, so that's why I thought he overshot it, but you're right, I think Souza was the one to back off in that scenario. It's quite congested still around the column. LaRue Sr. behind him, so Forcarpa's got by him already. Christopher Hill, Wesley Pistol, Patrick Moose all lined up behind this number 5 Ford Mustang.
I think that left side damage may be hurting a little bit more than I think McCollum probably expects here. It was something where drivers have talked about in the Coke Series and some of the tracks where you get that damage. It's really going to hurt your handling. He is almost sawzawing it a little bit off the corner in turn 2 specifically around that dog leg, and that just seems to be killing his momentum around the rest of the lap. Everyone else now, I think, is just deciding, you know what, let's stay calm. It's a chance to get some valuable points, work with there. As LaRue, we mentioned him a little bit. One of the top setup builders for his organization, really strong short track racer in his own right from Quebec. Whenever he usually is on track right, and whenever he's the person in charge of building the set, you know it's going to be fast.
But will it hold up on the other side of this race when we get towards up 156? The track's not going to change too much. We're top of the afternoon, so we're not going to have anything like lights taking hold of the circuit, but the track itself will evolve as cars run over it.
Looking like Boyd Hogan just landing by Max Cooks and knowing he's also very strong on the short tracks. Some of these drivers just playing a very smart race, I think, overall, though, because positioning is going to be so critical for next year. Being able to build up buy rating, going to be able to build up momentum for your organization, as well as making sure you've got a car that can compete at these types of racetracks, Ryan. Because if you don't have at least a good baseline of where your organization's at, it could be disaster. Some teams can build up quickly in the wintertime, whether it be quickly new formed organizations, or whether it be expansion, or whether it be a big insertion of investment. But if you don't get either of those things, it can be so tricky to be able to then know what do we need to try and improve on as an organization to be prepared for next winter, or next spring rather, to be able to keep on moving forward as a program.
It's certainly no let-off when these seasons come to an end, especially for those organizations that have the Pro Series coming up. That is absolutely critical for those that want to get into the Coke Series. It's the only way into the Coke Series, if not already there. Right now, though, focus for them is on this race, and this race only. It's through the dogleg. Patrick Moose, to his inside, he has Kyle Souza. And now ahead of him, he has Kyle Souza. Ocean Walsh in behind. Could go for the switchback here, Moose. This will tell us a lot if he does. There you go. So Moose wants to race. He doesn't want to let off and let people go by, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem like he has the car to do so.
Yeah, and this may now be again an area concern for the Nexus camp, because this is something they've shown a little bit on the mile and a half where they're good on short run for about 10-15 laps, but then started to fall off after some of the restructuring at some of the racetracks. Keep in mind, some of the racetracks. Looking like, unfortunately, some of that bad momentum after some of the shuffling from back in the summertime is starting to really see them push back at this part of the run. If there's a short run, they may still have a good momentum. The thing is, though, you still have Matheson up in front in fourth position on a similar set, likely on this racetrack. The question is, what's different for everybody else here to where all his other teammates are struggling to get grip?
Preference?
Possibly.
Preferring a car that runs tight or loose, whatever it may be. The others go the other way, and, well, his happens to be working better on this track right now.
Yeah, you see it right there, for example. Moose just is not getting good corner exit speed at all around this racetrack. Compare that to, say, Matheson, and that's been one of his strong suits. So it just seems some of these teammates just have not had at least the same comfortability in terms of grip off the corner compared to what Matheson's been able to do throughout this race, whether it's adjustments made during the pit stop by Matheson or whether it's overall just the preference is remaining to be seen, because you can, mind you, adjust some of that balance with some of the tire pressures and the spring purges. You want to use tire pressure since it's more temporary. You can end up taking it back out if you don't like it with the chassis. You have to keep in mind it's a permanent change, so to speak, even when you take it back out, the spring perch, but it also changes that whole geometry of the suspension from the get-go.
And that is why we have setup builders.
Yes, let's put it that way. It takes a ton of time to build a setup. The best organizations in all of iRacing, they're likely, if you want to be good, putting a minimum 1,000 laps a week. For the Coke races, when they were back to back to the playoff races, they were putting in 1,200 laps a week. Some of these teams, depending on some of the organizations, may build specific setup for a track or a specific base for a track months in advance to prepare for an upcoming season to make sure they know every little nuance possible. Now that's difficult to do, keep in mind, since the final season of 2020's iRacing calendar has gone by lightning quick run. We're nearly towards the end of that. There's been no indication of what's coming up towards those builds. A lot can change, and that in turn affects what you can prepare for 2021 Season 1, because a lot can potentially be adjusted as well as in Season 2. In turn, it's just about making sure, though, you have that knowledge together to know, okay, when this gets adjusted, here's what I need to do to try and balance that with this change in said build.
Yeah. Hey, remember Carlisle and Padovic restarted on the front row a couple cautions ago. Now they're now 29th and 30th on their old tyres, and Nobrega was back there with them, but it looks like he has just retired from this race to become our first retiree. Padovic, Carlisle, they're praying for a caution because they are going absolutely nowhere but backwards right now. By pitting early, they've dug themselves a hole, but if a caution does come out now, they'll be able to get out of it, but they'll still be on the back foot. Still relatively safe in terms of going a lap down. They've got about 10 seconds in hand.
Shouldn't be surprised, by the way, to see these 08 Sauer machines really quick here. We talked about the experience for Mains here at Phoenix. They went 1-2-3 Wednesday night top split action in NIS competition, in part on the way for Garrett Mains' victory lap tour for the overall series championship this year. They just have a knack for the flatter short tracks such as this. Martinsville was also a very solid track for them, if you remember back from the springtime as well as the fall time. They just know how to make these cars work here. The mile-and-a-half program, if they can build it up just a little bit more for next year, I think they have a shot to bring in a lot of their drivers into the Pro Series if they time it up right for Road to Pro this year. Because a couple of them, mind you, outside of Mains, outside of Vicente, were in the conversation much of the year.
It's a long year, though. And it's a tough schedule, Road to Pro, into the Pro Series, then into the Coke Series. It becomes a full 2-year investment pretty much of going flat out, giving it your all.
Minimum. And even then, once you get back up there, Ryan, you need to then be able to prove you can stay there. Not just by winning races, but be able to get good points. As a bit of trouble, Patrick Moose is loose.
Max Cookson whacked the fence as well, coming into turn 3. Got a bit too high, but Moose, yeah, his seems to be a lot worse. He is spun by the looks of things, gets it back going. We stay green because he was down on the apron, even though the apron is pretty much the racing surface on Phoenix. Here we go.
What did I just talk about? Turn 2, it looked like his car was losing grip on corner exit. There goes that grip, and bye-bye. What a save. And then he tries locking it up, I think, either trying to correct it from the safer barrier or try to make sure that he slows down enough. He doesn't get the caution flag, however, so congratulations. He's now P30 with that save. 18 seconds back, your race lead, and now he could be at risk of losing a lap too.
Well, like we saw from Baldridge, his car started snapping back the other way. He had to jam on the brake to avoid coming back into the path of other cars. This is Cookson. That was when he grabbed the fence up into turn 3. He got away with it pretty nicely, but he's just hit it again in live pictures. He's struggling as Will LaRue Sr. goes by. He's lost track of where that right side is, it seems. You can see the damage now on his front right fender.
Yep, he is starting to get to the opposite direction. I talked about tight off turn 2 specifically to that safer barrier. And you can get away with a bit of the damage as talked about here at tracks like Phoenix, yes. But when you are tight overall, it means you have to lift off the gas. You can't go into the gas as quick as you may want to be able to keep up with some of the others. It hurts you overall. And that's why some of the keys for drivers is when they really start to figure things out, you'll see that's where a lot of the cars are very loose because they want to burn the right rear and then even it out by having the right front burn quicker as the run progresses. It's the best teams, however, that realize things after that point of how do we make sure we keep it balanced completely where we don't need to overcook a tire to be able to try and keep it balanced for the other tire.
As we hit lap 80, starting to wonder when we might...
Jake Matheson around!
From P3, he loops it in... Where is that? Can't figure that out. Is that...
Dogleg.
Yeah.
Wow. Take a look at the simulation replay, and at first I thought he was going to catch it, but then he saws it back and forth, trying to correct it. All the overcorrections just bring out the caution right here. And to describe what he just said on the radio, that is the weirdest snap I've ever seen. That means he'll lose a ton of positions. Your biggest mover of the race is now back to 7th. All the way to only a +7 now, rather, in 18th.
So as I was saying, lap 80, we might see some pit stops. Maybe from some guys wanting to take a gamble. Well, we are. We're going to see everyone on pit lane here. We are halfway through this race.
Well, this is the exact same lap 2 I referred to a little bit too, around this mark, per se. But this point on, though, is where it gets interesting. You get a caution, say, 25 laps. It's not a guarantee you'll see people come in. It's not a guarantee you'll see people come in at 30 lap runs if we get a caution after 30. This point on, it could be a toss-up, especially with an additional set for some of these drivers still in the pits, and some of them, mind you, because of some of the troubles we had before or some of the early calls they made, who are going to potentially not have a set if there's a final caution in this race. Every car came in. Sean Powell waved goodbye to everybody, though, in the pit lane.
Think he may have missed his pit bay. Garrett Maines wins the race off pit road ahead of Matt Forcarpo and Will LaRue Sr. You know who's cheering? Carlisle and Patovich. They're back on the even ground.
Yep. And the thing with Patovich, he's got an extra couple sets. And that was a massive gamble from the 29 to be even thinking of doing that, have to say. He gets 10 more laps. He doesn't keep the lap even, I think. But now, he has the ability to say, we have caution 25, come down, get fresh tires. He has the freshest tires in the field. gain some position. Everyone then comes in, he gets to equalize, he gains net positions if it works out that way for him.
Indeed. Carlisle had some damage. It looked like he was getting repaired. He's only just beat the pace car off pit road. We have the one to go signal. 31 cars still running, all of them on the lead lap, just one retirement. JC Nobrega, 12 laps down now. That's calling it quits. 12 laps ago. No change for our race leader. Matt Forcarper's found again on pit road there, hasn't he?
Another 14.3 in the pit boxes. He's also been very quick in the lane. Line Racing Machines have put in a ton of work for this week as well, especially knowing that long run. Have to see if they can hold up now as they start to plan for a first gear shift again.
Backs him up and then hits that pedal. Away we go then on lap 82. Bit of a block from Will LaRue Sr. just trying to cover off Christopher Hill. It works well. We get through turn 1, turn 2 cleanly. Hill fighting with Levine for P5.
But I believe Scott Crump's been turned around.
Yep, caution's out. And another car involved as well. That is a blown engine, it looks like, potentially for Crump.
He's not going to be really happy as Vicente Salas was put back there. As he got some repairs, apparently. He had apparent damage to the right side of his race car. So we know how quick that car is. He just ends up sending a little bit deeper in the brakes. Huge shove into the wall for Scott Crump. And there goes a massive, massive ARCA brake for William Emshoff to try and stop the car, which will probably mean the end of his night.
Yep.
Also end of the night for Max Cookson as a result with the caution flag. But the main thing is, remember what I talked about in the braking point for that corner with drivers trying to send it a bit deep to get positions? That's where things can go wrong when you stack up like that.
You just got to be careful when you know you're quicker than those cars around you. You can't brake at your normal points. You know they're going to brake earlier than you. And even then you've got to brake earlier still to adjust for closing effects.
And even when you brake a little bit earlier, though, you're likely going to lose spots because here's the thing. Whenever I've raced here in the past, I'm honestly one of the drivers who tend to be very cautious at that end of the racetrack under braking. Almost a little bit too cautious. 9 times out of 10, I'm getting a dive to the inside because drivers feel like they can carry the speed and then still stick it. This type of track does fit in some cases the drivers who have the confidence to be aggressive because they in turn get the spots for 1, but for 2, when the tire wear always settles in and the passing gets very difficult here, it can be tough to get that spot back.
Only just past halfway, and that is caution number 6, maybe 7 in this race. Had a decent green flag run there of about 40 laps, didn't we?
We've actually surpassed the caution flag laps from one of the earliest NAS races, back in week 4, in fact, it was, but we were expecting a little bit of tense moments here for the final broadcasted race of the season for NAS Open. We're seeing some of those come into play for some of these competitors tonight, to say the very least. But when we got those green flag runs, absolutely, has been some great racing. It's just a matter of getting back to there, because right now, many of these drivers are looking towards that green light on the fuel, give or take. It's just a matter of, will they keep their cars on the track for that long?
And we went green, it went very quickly as well. Mains goes very quickly. As we have seen every restart today. Hogan trying to get inside of Forcarper. Wasn't quite able to get there. Ends up checking up LaRue Sr. just a little bit. Throws a block on Levine, and Christopher Hill gets in there. 3 of them make nose-to-tail contact, but they keep it straight.
Probably a couple apologies on the radio from the 2 Legacy Esports drivers there on the bottom side, Levine and Hill, but if you are some of the drivers like Matheson, like, say, Souza, you're licking your chops and saying, this is a chance to get good track position before things get crazy again. I'm taking this chance if I get the shot to dive it to your inside or build up a run. And that's what they're trying to do here. It's followed everybody up as far back as around 20th place here, too wide.
On board with McCollum. Ran as high as second in this race, now back in 14th. Make that 13th as he slips by Gary Sexton. And if he looks in front of him, we'll see Christopher Cornell trying to drive around the outside of Hernandez and getting it done.
If I'm some of the drivers watching Christopher Cornell, I'm taking notes because this has been one of the best runs I've ever seen from him so far. Keep in mind as well that a lot can change as these races progress, right? Because keep in mind the Thursday morning race, Thursday afternoon race rather, Ryan, for NAS Open. Guess who was the dominant car? Garrett Maines. But guess who won after leading only one lap? Alex McCollum in that race. So anything can change in the span of a couple laps. Any bad moment in this race for any of these drivers, or even a bad launch off a restart, could cost some of these drivers, and that's why some of them are being so aggressive here off the jump.
Whoa. Hang on to it. Christopher Pfeffer, four-wheel slide on the inside of Pistol. And as he did so, Cornell thought about getting underneath him. And it was looking a little bit messy for a minute. They've somehow got away with it. And Pfeffer's on the attack now, trying to clear Pistol. Cornell's defending from McCollum. But since Salas just sat back and waiting after he's trying to recover some lost ground.
Pfeffer at times can get towards being very over-aggressive, but other times he can end up outsmarting you as a driver in terms of how you position yourself, and not just that, how he uses the air cars essentially as pawns to help him gain position time. Look at how everyone else is fanning behind. Now that he's clear, if he can get everyone to try and battle with Wesley Pistol, he can then take off, and guess what, as they're side by side, he gains at least a few car lengths of a buffer on McCollum and company.
And it'll happen because, oh, there's contact and around goes Cornell on the main straight. Can he keep it off the racing line? He can. Caution comes out after he got turned around by Jonathan Hernandez.
Wow.
Maybe McCollum, sorry.
What a heartbreak for Christopher Cornell. Heck of a race tonight. Had one of the best cars in the field. He was outperforming his own teammates by at least 10 positions. But right here, it's towards the wall, just drips a touch bit down as I think he had a touch bit of a bobble off the safer barrier. Salas was pushing up a touch, gets turned around. And that damage is likely going to cost him a good place unless something happens. Take a look at this specifically. See right there, that bobble, not enough time for Salas to react on top of things.
It wasn't Hernandez, it wasn't McCollum, it was Salas that got into him. Yeah, they were running so tight. You can't actually be blamed at any of them there, really. I mean, yeah, there was a slight bobble from the 11, but man, wouldn't even notice it if there wasn't a car there. So, lap 95, another caution. We have a couple of takers to pit road. I think most of these cars are getting some damage repaired. Boulder Ridge, Crump, Cornell, obviously. Dakota Ehrman just coming off pit road as well. Couple more takers on that lap. Who are they?
Wow, McCollum, Salas, Bento, Patovich, Powell, Bridgman, all coming in. And this is towards... Gonna have to make sure of this, believe the one to go signal. No, there's an extra pace lap, so this is why they came in here. So they can come in and go to the back of the field and use that set of tires now. I'm surprised they waited the extra lap, though. I think maybe it had just been in part, really, when you think about it, Ryan, the time to win the pit lane open. For everyone else, I don't blame them for staying out here. Just keep the track position, because track position is king here.
It is. It is, unless we go green for the last 40 laps. And then those cars that pitted are going to look very good. The issue, the only downside is we haven't had that many laps running since Maines and Co pitted. So, in fact, what's the actual difference? Maines pitted on lap Yeah, so we restarted onto lap 87. Caution came out lap 94, so it's not that much, is it? In fact, in terms of time, it's just a tenth of a second.
Yeah, in terms of pit stop times, possibly, yeah. But to save you the math on air, about 10 laps difference on the lap cycles, Ryan. 10 laps. How big those 10 laps? We haven't had enough of a sample size to see for one, but for two, all those drivers essentially will be about 19th on back. It's going to be a hornet's nest back there because you have McCollum, you have Salas, you have Powell, you have Pavlovich among some of the drivers who can be a bit aggressive back there at times. There might be 4 wide through that dog leg. I wouldn't be surprised to see with some of those drivers back there with how much time they would need to gain back and how many drivers they'll need to try and pass here as we're expecting the one to go this time.
Couple more retirements in this race now. Jordan Nobrega, Max Cookson, William Amshoff. Scott Crump not officially retired, but he is on pit road 12 laps down. He might get back out there, but...
No. He also has teammates, mind you, keep in mind in the race, and one of the things you might be doing here is trying to help them, spotting them along, give them assistance, because keep in mind, one of his teammates is still in P3. Matt Forkaba, who's been having one of the best runs we've seen him have in months. We talked about how quick that team was at Indianapolis, at Pocono. This is one of their best cars since that mark. They had a bit of speed at Bristol, but just didn't get the luck of the strategy there in some of the other races against some of the Coke drivers in front in action. Didn't get on the same tire cycles, even with some of the pro drivers running, to see how they've shaped up against some of the big names. In other words, this is something where I think some of the top drivers are keeping an eye on, as well as some of the team members of that organization to see, can they pounce?
Boyd Hogan's got himself to second for this restart again as Maines pulls it perfectly. And a big
in the back.
block as there is a big incident. Now the caution comes out.
Finally. How that caution didn't come out 10 seconds ago, I'm not sure, but what in the world? What in the world was that? Believe that was row 2 of fresh tires that just piled in. Yeah, somebody didn't get going. Vicente Salas trying to get a good launch, checked up, and that checked up the top line and then collected the bottom line as they all didn't see what happened. And then you had the 30 also spin the tires trying to avoid everything.
That was just messy. There was some craziness at the front as well with Forcapa blocking Levine, and they all got stacked up through turn 1. Here's another angle of the incident at the back.
Forcapa actually lost a couple spots. Is right there. There's the check. That's Robert Pavlovich having to try and go to the left to dodge, avoid the back end, and it collects Sean Powell, Bento, and a couple others also getting some bystander damage from that incident.
Well, we'll try again then. Time winding down, especially for those guys on the fresher tires. They want as much green flag running as possible.
I mean, NIS going to NIS, am I right? By the way, that move you're talking about, Ryan, lost Matt 2 spots. So he's not going to be quite as happy of losing the top 3 just like that. At the least, though, I think he's got a top 10 car. He just needs to be smart on it, where you be over-aggressive trying to hold on to a spot, especially when driver feels like they're a top 5 driver. Especially, say, with Matheson back up to 6th, by the way. You're kind of going to get a love tap.
Yeah. Oh, Messi. It's Messi back there. There's lights stay on the pace car, so first. It's because Johnny Baldridge is 1 lap down. Damn it, Johnny.
He's out of the race, though.
Oh, that's a shame.
He's out of the race, but I think it's more so because Bento is getting damage repaired. That's your reasoning. Also, don't forget, because Scott Crump is still in this race. There's going to be an additional pace lap each caution, so that's now also going to have to be factored in because he's still watching along with his competitors while that engine still gets repaired. It's still at least another 20 minutes of repairs he would have to get before he can try and even jump on the track to then try and hope he can jump Baldridge and Bento in the timing. It's the matter of how many laps would he have to be able to do it. I don't know if that's going to be an easy one to simply answer.
16 laps difference between himself, Baldridge, and Bento. Zach Bento's kept going here. He's back out on the racetrack. He's headed our way.
Crump actually just getting rolling too. So just like that, he said, you know what? I think I heard you. I'm going to jump in my car and say, oh, I don't need to wait 30 minutes. I just need to wait 12. I just wanted to see how it tests you.
We'll see how many spots he can gain by the time this race wraps up. If they keep wrecking, it could be quite a few. Remember, no spare cars in NAS competition. Lights are out on the pace car. Lap 103 of 156. We're getting towards the final laps of season 2020. The NASCAR iRacing Series Open setup on a Friday night. What a ride it has been, and Garrett Manning's going to end up the dominant champion overall for the season. But he wants to finish it with a race win. So far, he has led every lap he possibly could. As we go back green once more. Slow start from Hogan.
Boyd Hogan actually pulled a short track move there. Some drivers think if you jump half a car length, head on the top line, it gets you a shot to battle. The problem is, it doesn't usually work. You've seen it where he lost 3 car lengths and bottled everybody up as a result, because everyone was probably anticipating an earlier jump, and now they're 3 wide behind him.
That's Matheson up top for Carper shooting the middle, trying to recover lost ground from the previous restart, and Souza dropped back on the inside there as well. We get through lap 1 cleanly of the restart. On board with Souza now. Trying to follow for Carper, who's now broken clear of Matheson. Someone was very shallow across the dogleg. I think that was Alex McCollum.
Well, he said via text, I'm going for wide. Guess what? He tried to do that. He's got the freshest tires at the track. He's the first driver on those freshies at the moment. We didn't have a caution, though, from an incident at the back, apparently, because Cornell, Bridgman, and Ehrman were among the drivers collecting some trouble back there with Scott Crump. That didn't trigger the yellow. They're now a quarter of the track behind the rest of the group.
McCollum going to pick up another spot on Hernandez. Fresh tires for the number 5. Lapping 3 tenths quicker than Hernandez on the previous lap. Salas coming through as well. He's just got by Patrick Moose. But their lap times are about on par with the leaders, not quicker.
And this is strategy role for these drivers. If there's a caution around this mark, you'll likely see drivers then come in and potentially use their third set there. The drivers you see cutting their way through the field likely stay out. That's going to be one of the major risks for anyone who tried the early strat, is you are hoping there's enough laps where then everybody would have to come in, and it's to the point where it's too late to use a 4th set, possibly. It's going to be fun, though, for this race lead, because Hogan, he's turned up the wick now. He's turned up his pace. He's been cautious all race. This is the most aggressive he's been all day, especially, in part, that driver in front. He's been the dominant driver all day, but he's ready to try and pounce on Garrett Maines, to say the very least.
Yeah, putting some pressure on him. First driver to do so today. Drops the left sides onto the apron through turn 3 and 4. Now, it's one of the only places in NASCAR you can grab the apron without wrecking instantly. In real life, we see a lot of cars go all the way onto the apron in turns 3 and 4, but it doesn't quite work out to be as successful in iRacing.
Now, if that changes with the reconfiguration, we'll have to see, but that's still probably at least a couple months off. At the very minimum, you'd have to think. But to get to the serious point of that, you may see drivers, however, trying to use the left side tires underneath that yellow line. It can work at times, but it's not quite as easy because with this version of Phoenix on the iRacing service, there is a slight difference in banking. It's a little bit of a progressive banking, about 1 degree in that corner, mind you, on the service. So when you clip it, it's not as simple as, okay, it's the same amount of degrees compared to the main track. You're going to be essentially a bit off camber, so to speak, on your tire, and that's in part where you see some of the drivers so loose and why you can't just simply dive to the apron and make it stick like you would see on a short run like in real life at that main end of the racetrack in turns 1 and 2 these days in real life.
So, the opportunity for a move at this corner for Hogan might only come if he gets a good exit off of turn 1, gets to the inside at turn 2, then he can make that dive to the inside. You got to really set up your passes at this place, or prey on a mistake. I reckon right now he might have at the very least the same pace as Maines, and maybe even more as a laps car just gets out of the way. That's Scott Crump circulating, getting closer and closer to Baldridge on the leaderboard.
The dicey, and here's the crazy thing. The drivers on the different tire strats, they are some of the fastest cars on the track, yes, but when they're in traffic, they have equalized to within a tenth or two of your race leaders. They're getting held up by all these cars, and this is one of the major problems when it comes to Phoenix if you're on the different straps is if you don't have a big enough of a difference, once you reach a wall of cars, that's where it may be very difficult to utilize them, and we're seeing that exactly now with McCollum and Salas. They've been stuck in 6th and 7th for a while.
What about the fact that Will LaRue Sr. in 3rd is lapping quicker than the top 2?
And keep in mind...
Whoa! Before Carpenter's got loose exiting turn 1. That's going to allow McCollum around his outside. It was a good job to catch that from the driver of the number 9.
Bit of a mistake indeed. They're just too loose coming off the corner on the throttle. And now this is where Vicente Salas comes into play.
Caution.
And now the caution comes into play.
Sean Powell out of this race, at least for the next few laps as he toes back to pit lane. Finding the fence down the main straight. What happened here on the Modem Simulation replay?
See as he's battling Bruce Bayham, Christopher Hill, Wesley Pistol back there looking for solid points. I think it's about right here where, yep, too loose off the corner. Ends up snapping it around to the overcorrection, pin-pawns it off the wall and into the safer barrier.
How about the job from the others not to hit him? Or maybe sheer luck in that situation, but that was remarkable.
I think it's more so the luck on how that car ricocheted around, because down the front stretch at Phoenix, for this version of the track, I mean, it's like a funnel. You have a crash down there, you're likely going to get yourself collected if you have that car bounce off the wrong way, and you'll see a track blocker. That's what happened in previous caution a few cautions ago. But now, this is where we see that tire flip effect likely here. Mostly everyone coming in, except for some of the drivers who came in the last caution flag. So now they have to play defense and hope they get a caution flag to where they use that last set to equalize back or don't lose too many spots here.
The issue for them is there's only 2 of them.
3 of them when you include Eduardo Oliveira, but I don't know if this is going to work.
No. If I was McCollum, I would have pitted because he'd actually gained from where he was before he made that stop.
Here's the problem.
Pitted. Here's the back on cycle.
Here's the problem, Ryan. If you pit now, you're out of tire sets. If you're him.
Yeah. Okay,
if you have a late race, if you have a caution with under 20 to go, let's say, and where everyone else comes in, you stay out. Guess who finishes in 20 if or gets sent around? The driver on 20 lap roll tires. Someone took 2 though, I believe, or at least only a 6-second stop. Wesley Pistol rolling the dice.
2 tire gambles, you know, for what I see, Justin, don't often work in iRacing. The balance of the car just doesn't translate in iRacing to 2 tire stops.
He only took fuel. He only took fuel. To correct me there. He only took fuel. He's keeping an extra set here, and this is another massive gamble.
Honestly, it makes more sense than taking 2.
It does. It does, yes, because the balance here, you take the 2, it can be really thrown off. With this tire model, it can make you more so tighter compared to the V6 where it made you looser at this type of racetrack, especially. Apparently, though, here's the downside if you're a Wesley Pistol fan. To quote, he just said over the radio, this was not what he intended to do, so good luck.
Well, he's got to stick with it now. He's got no choice.
Yep.
So the restart, we are going to have McCollum and Salas on the front row. They have been fighting very hard all race amongst traffic. Eduardo Oliveira up to 3rd. I mean, he's not been a factor at the front for much of this one, but now he suddenly is after starting 30th. They're all on old tyres, having last pitted on lap 96.
Give or take, yes, all right. But the thing is with Eduardo, with him being involved with some of the cautions before, he's come in for various services before because he smoked the tires. He's on much older tires by 15 additional laps to McCollum and Salas, including the caution flag laps. That's about maybe an extra 10 laps and green flag laps on the 27th tires. And that's going to be even worse now for these drivers to deal with. There's a risk for him having massive tire spin here. Don't be surprised to see these drivers likely starting in 2nd gear to make sure they don't loop it around down the front stretch and pile up the whole field.
Well, Pistol's tyres are older than the 3 in front of him.
Well, yes, in theory, yes. Actually, that's a great point.
He's in a really bad spot.
Him and Oliveira, if anything. Everybody else, it's about who gets through quickly, who gets the lead after a couple laps here.
Plays out. They could fan out pretty aggressively through the dogleg. 37 to go at Phoenix. It's McCollum and Salas on the front row. Applying the power. We're back racing, and look at Maines immediately to the inside of the 2nd row.
Is that not a shock? Vicente Salas.
Whoa, there goes Levine, turned around to the background by mouth of caution flies.
But that was coming.
Yep. They were trying to squeeze to the inside to get around those slower cars and squeezed into each other, unfortunately.
Yeah, they were 3 wide, and I don't think Matheson may have realized that they were going to be 3 wide with that older tire car still off the corner. You see Boyd Hogan sending up the middle. Levine tries to back it up to make sure he doesn't snap it like a couple have today. Gets a bump, able to save it. That's enough, though, the trick of the caution flag.
Good job for Matheson to jump on the brake and not plow through him after getting into him initially. Larry Sr. doing a good job. That was a good jump from him as well to follow Maines. He'll restart from 4th. He might be a wild card at the end of this one. In fact, I think he already is.
Well, he definitely is a wild card in terms of potential victories here, but this is one of his organization's better tracks. They had a very competitive road to pro build for this track, mind you. They weren't necessarily the highest of highest splits, to be quite frank, but the truck was quick. And guess what? This is one of their quicker tracks. And you're seeing that come into play for Rue specifically with his short track experience from real life playing a factor here. Now the main thing is, though, how they get around Salas and McCollum, because both of them still on the older tires. Maines is going to have an escape route to make it 3 wide for the race lead into turn 1. For LaRue, it's not going to be quite as simple.
I don't think anything's simple at this point. There's still... It never is it? There's still a tyre set available for all of the drivers. Question mark?
Yeah. I think, if anything, the drivers who stayed out probably wanted another 10, 15 laps on that run. Now, if it's stop, start, stop, start.
No one's pitting.
Exactly. Because no one's really burning the tires off. Yes, there's heat cycles, but it's not really burning the tires up to enough where you're going to necessarily come down. We've seen drivers stretch to 35 laps, including caution flag laps tonight. And we're towards that markish, but that also leaves the window open with some of these cautions, Ryan, where you'll see drivers stay out. And that is where that strat goes out the window, where you will have to come in, and guess what? You'll likely be in the teens because at least maybe 5-6 cars try to stay out and hope for cautions via 20-car pileup.
Looking at how that restart went for the second row, even if we go back-to-back cautions, I don't think McCollum and Salas have got anything to play with here. I think give a lap, and Maines, LaRue Sr. will get by him pretty quick. Unless those two in the front row have done a fantastic job preserving their tyres. Obviously, McCollum will pull on the initial start because he controls the field, but once we get out of turn 1, that's when we'll see how they're going to stack up with each other.
Absolutely. At this mark, it's not necessarily if they keep the lead, it's necessarily where they shuffle to. Off the starts, we've seen drivers on older tires fall back to the 20s. There is that equalization point, though, where they might settle in a bit more higher than some of the others because of the raw pace in the cars.
Well, we're going to find out, aren't we? Back green. Good jump from McCollum. Not a good one from Salas. Maines already about to get by him. LaRue Sr. stuck behind Salas. Hogan going with Maines. And he's just going to go to the outside of McCollum and try to drive around him here.
That's not a shock whatsoever here. It's just a matter of it will stick. Here comes Hogan.
Oh no, he's got him and he's turned him. Maines sliding, locking it down. Will he get hit? No. Yes. Did he? That was close.
How in the world did he save that and not get hit by Reese Bayham? How in the world? That is unbelievable. That was coming where you've seen McCollum really fight it shockingly with the older tires that hard. Hogan sees him drift up and takes a 3. McCollum still driving up the hill regardless, right into the door of Maines. And he nearly gets hit not once, not twice, but about 3 times and keeps the car undamaged while Carwile nearly smacks the barrels. What a caution and what a save by Maines to not get his car completely destroyed there.
That was remarkable. Carwile did a fantastic job as well, I must say. He only just grazed it. He just got it, man. Wow. That is a huge shame for Maines, though. Just those older tyres, McCollum tried to drive it as hard as he could. There was no grip available for him when he was sliding up the track, and while that was happening, Boyd Hogan just drove underneath both of them and took away the lead of the race.
I think even if he didn't dive it underneath there, I think there's still the contact because McCollum's grip was not there to stick the yellow line in the first place. He shuffled up a lane and a half, and that's where Boyd decided to go through the hole. So in other words, there's going to be some words probably exchanged there, but you have to give credit to the save for Maines. He's not going to be happy, though, you'd have to think there, because his tires are now going to be really smoked, and guess what? He's still not in a position to take the tires, so he's going to be very aggressive to get back to this field. Oh, by the way, Vicente Salas elected to pit and try and take the charge with them here after that trouble.
Yes, not too surprised to see Salas pitting. He's already given up the front row. I think McCollum, though, is going to have the same thing happen to him that Salas had last restart. He can't go with the leader, and he gets boxed in up high. If we stay going to the end, we could still see Salas play a part in this one. With his tyre advantage over Maines and co.
Yeah, but it's also going to take, I think, at least a few restarts to bottle things up. And as well, the difference on the tires isn't quite as big, I think, as they needed it to be. Because it's only about 5 laps. Green flag laps, mind you, at the most. And that's where the strat goes completely out the window. And now, for everyone else, I've talked about, from this point on, We may see everyone just say, you know what, I'm staying out on the racetrack. I'm not risking my track position on a restart. I'm keeping it on the racetrack no matter what. It all really depends, though, on how the next restart plays out. If we get a short run of, say, 5-6 laps, you take the window of anyone pinning out of contention. You get a run of 15 laps, you see a ton of people potentially think about coming in. You see a run up to 5 laps to go, around that mark, you have to come into pit, to be quite frank.
Eduardo Oliveira and Wesley Pistol are still 6th and 7th, by the way. So there's still going to be some cars trying to get by them on this restart, on the 3rd and 4th row. Hogan, though, got a very good chance now to pull away and pull a gap, because Larusini is going to have to fight to get by McCollum. So's for Carper, Levine. And the fastest car on track is at the back now. That's Garrett Maines. Pace car's off. 26 to go when we hit the line. Holds them a long time, but now we go back racing. McCollum does a good job there to go with Hogan and get himself some clean track through the first corner.
Driving pretty crazy, though, around 9th on back. There was a massive dive behind some of these cars to make it 3. They are still 3, nearly 4 wide, with some of these drivers knowing they can't afford to be calm here. If they set up a move, they're going to likely take it, like this one here.
Into turn 1, Patrick Moose right on the bumper. There's trouble behind him. Up and into the fence goes car number 10. Or rather...
That's Bento. And Christopher Hill, so you're half right.
Yeah, we go.
And I have a feeling it was that driver who also stayed out on these caution flags, the 27 Oliveira. Have to see on the replay here to be sure, but you see all that shuffling. There's already that 3 wide dimension. There's big dives right here, and Vicente Salas is going to have a busy inbox after this race.
Again, that was completely unrelated. Bento.
And then you have this unrelated on top of things. What in the world? Let's take a look at this one, because how do you have 3 separate crashes in 3 separate parts of the field here?
What? That was a hard left into the fence.
I think there was more so, there's a car in the middle of the track. I can't slam the brakes in some of these, and there. I think there's more to the left right here where. What in the world?
Carwell just drifted across ever so slightly into the front right of Bento, and that's what hooked him around. They were running very tight 3 wide, those 3. And Carwell's just misjudged his car. Where's Garrett Maines back up to? He's 19th now. On the comeback trail.
Still don't think it's enough laps. If anything, he might have just made some adjustments to try and counter the very hot tires. And it's still saving the set. Honestly, get a lap 10 laps, or run of 10 laps rather. He probably takes that set regardless of what happens up front. You'd have to, at this point. Try something, right? I mean, you're at the back already. You may as well take the set. It's too early to try that because you can't really say that justifiably on only about a couple laps per run.
They're dragging this on as long as they can. The final race of the NASCAR iRacing season. $22 to go now. Laps are winding down. Still 2 laps to go under this pace car period, but we have seen some fantastic races this season. From Auto Club back at the start. Some of our short tracks have been spectacular. We've had some fantastic super speedway races as well. For the most part, Friday night Open has been pretty clean compared to the trend set before it earlier in the week. But this week, maybe not so much, but, you know, it's been good.
It's short track. It's short track. You have to keep in mind, cautions usually are much higher on the short tracks, and drivers are more tentative and really more... I wouldn't say cautious, because we've seen the exact opposite of that tonight, but they try and wrap their cars more so in bubble wrap for these types of races. But in all seriousness, the races that really, I think, have surprised us this season, if you think back to Daytona 500, I think I was actually on the racetrack racing in that race, if you think back, and wish there was an incident coming off of turn 4 to be able to celebrate in victory lane, to say the very least. But in all seriousness, again, there was 100 laps green, was there not, Ryan? Where it was surprisingly clean. These drivers can put on a clean race. It's just with the tight quarters racing, it can be tricky.
Well, is this the last restart of 2020?
My money says no.
Still McCollum holds on to second. And away we go. Even better restart from McCollum this time. Even closer to Hogan.
He's trying to back it on down, and here comes the aggression as everybody's bottling into the wall. Goes to 31. That is an Elliott Sauber car trying to fight with his teammates.
Really?
I don't think that was intentional there, though.
Here is a thing that's too aggressive.
Yeah.
And the one caught out.
Yeah. Dirty Air 13 streamer not going to be quite happy here as they're near 4 wide, first of all, down the straight, but right here, he's already bombing a little bit. Just a touch bit of a tap from Garrett Maines, and bye-bye goes the front end for Gary Sexton. Just the luck of the draw in 2020 for him on the track.
Well, hit that wall pretty square as well with the front of the car. He's had to tow back to pit lane. I dare say his engine might have gone a pop in the motion of that accident. This is great for McCollum, by the way, though. The laps wind down and down, while he just stays second with his 2-tire gamble. Salas, after abandoning his efforts, is 15th. Pistol, who unfortunately ended up stuck on really old tyres, is still 9th. And where's Oliveira got to? I can't... Oh, there he is. He's on pit road.
Yeah. Still no tires, by the way, used, and this continues to just really hurt the chances for, I think, Maines, really, and for Salas to try and utilize their bit fresher rubber here. At this point, too, I think Alex McCollum's bet has been made. He pits. He's not finishing in the top 15, possible, or not rather in the top 5. He has to stay out to hope it keeps on having caution via caution via caution to have a shot on being where he's at right now.
Will LaRue Sr., if he can just get by McCollum, he might have a chance to go and get Hogan. But he's not been able to get by on the short bursts we've had. He's got decent pace. Don't forget, before that initial caution came out to end the green flag run, he was catching Maines and he was catching Hogan.
Absolutely, but you have to keep in mind, too, the difficult part is you have to remember Blake Neer works with Alex McCollum a lot, the car that's going to be starting second. Blake Neer does have some history working with Lloyd Hogan a lot at times. So there's likely going to be some help on that side. Possibly. Can't say for sure, though, based on the partnerships. With that still in mind and some of the drivers and feeling that may possibly come in, it's going to be for Will LaRue Sr. a need to dive into turn 3. He needs to get to turn 3 to get that spot. If he can pass Boyd, though, remains to be seen. Because we haven't seen enough laps for him to try and really fight Boyd Hogan at all on the racetrack, even on a short run yet.
needs to be aggressive. Not as aggressive as being back in the pack, but needs to find something to get by that car pretty quickly. Jake Matheson and 4 Carper as well could definitely vie in if they start getting a bit racy up here. But I think in terms of outright pace, it's between Hogan and LaRucini now. It'll be 15 to go once we cross the line.
You can already see Boyd Hogan's trying to time this up here. And he's known to try and switch it up a little bit. Sometimes you go on pace car, sometimes you get the 3 count, sometimes you wait right into the end of the restart box. Looking like based on the position, he might go pace car.
Oh, the column slid the rears there. Not a good job. This might offer up the opportunity LaRucini needed. Through turn 1. Race to get on the power. And into the dog leg. LaRue is going to get him. And Matheson as well. Trying to get by.
Column still not giving this up easily at all. They're already near spinning towards the back and they all saved it. So at this point, you need to complete the pass for sure here. There it is.
Oh, that's quite a few cars in this one. Christopher Cornell, one of them. Reese, another. Dakota Roman, a third. LaRucini was getting a hurry up from Matheson and all of that to get by McCollum. He wasn't going as quickly as he wanted, but eventually it happened as there was a slide from Cornell that he caught. And that's unfortunate.
Right into his teammate.
That's rather unfortunate.
But the real thing that triggered all of it is right there you see the touch bit of contact and looseness with Bayham and Maines right into Cornell, who gets pinball. He looks like he saves it, but again, when you're on the apron and on the marbles, you can snap like that and right up into Bayham a second time, and also collecting right out of nowhere with no chance to even react there, Dakota Ehrman.
Now we're close to 10 to go when we restart. McCollum's still third. It's working nicely. But, crucially, LaRucini has got himself into second. Now he can go and fight Hogan. For Carper was aggressive. He wanted to take him 3 wide, but he just couldn't find the room to do it. And behind them, Levine was throwing a block on Souza when that caution flew.
We are seeing some of the drivers, well, most of them getting damage repair, but I think Jonathan Hernandez did elect to say, you know what, I'm taking the tires, may as well. He was in 16th or 17th position. But everyone else, I don't think there's even a shot you even see them come down. There's just not enough laps left in the race, even if you get a late race restart, for them to matter. Track position is king. Boyd Hogan is now in a good spot, but Will Rue, I'm curious what he does here, since this is the best I've seen him in a cup car perform in a long time, let alone ever, here in NAS competition.
But can he make good of it? Big opportunity. Started 8th. Showed his pace in qualifying. There's a number 19 car in the session. Remember that number determined by that I rating. Garrett Maines, number 1, the highest I rating them all. Down to William Amshoff, number 32. Qualified 8th. Has run towards the front for most of this race. It's not a case of strategies put him there. Yes, strategies played a part, but he has run very well of his own accord.
Absolutely. Shockingly, Robert Panovich is still holding on to the top 10 here in all of this. Remember, he tried to roll the dice before in the tire strats. He only has 1 set still in the pits, yes, but he's just been able to dodge all the craziness and say, you know what, I want to try and get a good finish. He might get it here.
Well, at one point, he was in danger of going a lap down if we'd stayed green, but he got the break needed, doing good with it.
And he's your biggest mover too at plus 22 as well, Ryan. But this is the type of track where if you play the strategy right and if you play the dodgems right, guess what? he can get a good finish. We're seeing some of these drivers dodge some of the trouble, and now coming up to 9 laps to go for this restart. We'll have to see how they stack them up again. Hopefully, it's the good kind of stack up instead of the bad kind.
Stack them up. Let's try it again. Less than 10 to go on this restart. Phoenix Raceway. Circa 2017. Putting on quite a display today. Amazingly, still, a lot of cars running.
I mean, at least it's a virtual track, right? Otherwise, we'd have a lot of people in the virtual truck, to say the very least, having a lot of virtual discussions.
Yeah. It's been that kind of day. Away we go. Hogan goes. Check out McCollum. He goes with him. No, LaRue Sr. is going to lose game time. And he might lose to Matheson as well here. Unless he can drive around that number 5 car.
Definitely a sign of a count. That's definitely a sign of a count there, going for McCollum with the help of Boyd Hogan. And that really, I'm still not sure what the call is there on that with McCollum. Not going to be able to stick this if they have enough green flag laps. That, if anything, really just hurt Will LaRue, as you mentioned, is going to really shuffle him out here. I don't know if he can get back Matheson here as a result of this.
I don't think Matheson's got the pace to go and catch Bogan. Hogan, rather. Now he gets to the right rear of McCollum. With the extra grip, is he able to just power down and keep it glued on the top side? He certainly does a very good job of it. Caution comes out. I think he nosed ahead by the time that flew.
And it's CJ Lavere who was just able to lock it up for about 16th position. He was all the way up to the safer barrier I seen at the corner of my eye, trying to drift this and save this car. Let's take a look as he was trying to hold off the fresher tires of Jonathan Hernandez. Tries to hold a bit of the bottom, weeble wobbles, and gets a bit of help from behind. And gets absolutely sent into the corner. That lock up there, though, because he's slowed down on the track, triggers the caution. Everyone else dodges.
A lot of wrecking happening for P15 on down today. Oh, the leader's been pretty clean.
There's Ocean Walsh, that time, who is still in older tires, mind you, one of the Nexus cars. But welcome to iRacing.
Couple takers to pit road. Pistol's one of them by the looks of it.
Again, it's the call of, why not? Try a different advantage. You're on 33 lap old tires. It might mean something for at least a couple more spots from where you're at. It only loses you 4 or 5 spots. May as well do it. But for Garrett Maines, keep in mind, with all these restarts bottling up, he is still gaining spots. He's not been having good launches, Ryan, but because it's been repeated restarts, he's slowly, methodically getting them. Now, if he gets a couple green-white checkers, he might have a shot on retaking this race late in the closing stages. If it goes towards the white flag, it's out the window. Maines is up 10th, by the way.
Just gonna run out of time.
Well, once again,
Maybe.
it's NIS at Phoenix. A lot of crazy things happen here. And we are looking like, I think, a 3-lap shootout maybe here too, Ryan. Which, not too many laps.
Yeah, you're right. Matheson second. Can you do anything with it? If McCollum gets the countdown he had, it seemed on the previous restart, it'll pretty much secure a win for Hogan. Because as soon as McCollum gets in front, it takes about half a lap at least for the others to get by, and that's enough time for Hogan to pull a decent chunk of time.
Especially with the help of McCollum. It looks like at the very least McCollum knows he gives up those spots, he's not getting them back. And that's where I think it's looking like at least the counts from Hogan is what's the plan here is. Help him preserve iRating since he is a pro license. Help him keep that car as clean as it can be and get him a good finish for, in general, the morale with that group. I don't know if Jake Matheson is going to play ball with that, though, obviously, based on the past. He might really, really try and prevent that from happening. I wouldn't be surprised the second he even hears a tiny bit of an engine rev, or he tries to jump up, or even tries what Boyd Hogan did before by moving a half car lane up, which is in that gray area of legality.
Three to go. Not a green light checkered yet. We're still in regulation, 156 laps. Fuel is far from an issue with the cautions we've had. It is Hogan and Matheson on the front row. It's McCollum, and it is LaRue Sr. on row 2. Then for Carper and Souza. Matheson tried to judge it. He judged it badly. And there's a check-up behind him now as LaRue Sr. drops down the order. And now they're 4 wide into turn 1.
Well, this isn't going to be good off the corner.
Squeezy, squeezy. Into the fence goes LaRue. Into Salas. He bounces. Keeps the car pointed forward. We will remain green.
Not sure how that wasn't a caution or anyone snapping around there, but just needing one more lap to get that white flag for this to be official. If you're Boyd Hogan, if you get the caution, it puts Maine right back into it, with everyone going to be very aggressive if it gets to a GWC.
There is Maines up in 7th, 8th, fighting for every last spot, trying to recover from a spin. Up front, Boyd Hogan, tracked to himself. Coming to the line, white flag. We are going to finish this race. There's one more lap in 2020 for NIS Open on Friday night.
Fairly impressive night. But overall, a crazy end to this one.
Levine going big block on Maines. Out of the last corner, Boyd Hogan through it all, through all the cautions. He's going to win at Phoenix. Drag race for 5th to the line. And Levine held off Maines by 0.02 of a second.
An interesting race as Matheson congratulates Hogan. But how in the world did McCollum hold on to 3rd? Is the biggest question I think everyone has.
We got a lot of help with all those cautions coming out. Kept backing up the field, and he was able to make good with it. What a race. Finish off our season. So much drama. But Boyd Hogan will cap off 2020 in style, as he does his celebrations across the stripe. Here's your full results at the end of 156 laps at Phoenix. It is Boyd Hogan that wins from 2nd on the grid. Jake Matheson finishes 2nd. Alex McCollum holds on to 3rd with a big strategy gamble. Matt Forcarper 4th. Justin Levine just grabs 5th ahead of Maines and 6th. Carl Souza 7th. Vicente Salas, Jacob Hall, and Patrick Moose make up your top 10.
11th spot tonight goes to Jonathan Hernandez. An up and down day for him. He finishes in front of Robert Patovich, who still comes away with a big net gain on IR. Wesley Pistol finishes 13th, with Christopher Pfeffer rounding out the top 14. CJ LeVere, after his spin, finishes 15th, with Keith Bridgman 16th. A very, very, very quiet day for him for Legacy Esports. Was in the back much of the day. Will LaRue Sr. finishes 17th, with Reese Bayham in 18th after some incidents. Oliveira recovers from having no hood to finish 19th. Miguel Bento also recovers from several incidents and no front clip to finish P20.
Ryan Carlisle ended up as the last car in the lead lap ahead of Ocean Walsh, and then Dakota Ermin, and then retirement, and Christopher Hill, Christopher Cornell, Scott Crump, Gary Sexton, Sean Powell, Johnny Baldridge, William Amshoff, Max Cookson, and JC Nobrega. Let's have a chat then to race winner Boyd Hogan. Boyd, you got it done. Final race of the season. It was a tough old slog, but good win in the end.
Yes, sir.
Talk us through that race then. It was a tough one. You had one decent green flag run, but you had a lot of race starts to contend with.
Yeah, it was crazy for sure. We missed it a little bit early on. The second run that we got, the car just kind of swung a little bit too tight. So we came down the second to last stop. I think it was around 80 or 90, and we were probably about 3 clicks away from being really, really good. So can't thank everybody at Legacy enough. The car was a rocket after we got the changes in, and glad we could close out NIS and get another one.
Think you could have beaten Garrett if he hadn't got spun out?
Probably not. But I mean, it happens. They I don't want to say anything too bad, but I know how it probably would have ended, and so straight up on pace, probably not. But he makes a lot of decisions that get him in trouble anyways. So I assume he probably would have done the same thing there, and that's kind of what he did. So.
Is there anyone else you want to thank for helping you over the course of the season and finishing off 2020?
Yeah. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody on Legacy Esports, Team Slip Angle, Bobby Earnhardt himself, man. We, when the NIS started season started, we were just underground racing, and within a couple weeks we were hanging out with Bobby Earnhardt, man. It was cool, and got to thank him, Judd Danielson at Abruzzi. He's done a lot for the team here, especially of late. Cale Gale, Chris Hill, everybody who's put a lot of time into this car specifically, and obviously throughout the season. Derek Runge, Caden Lapsevich, Curtis Sawyer, Trayton Lapsevich. Trayton and I just opened up a setup shop, Reaper Speed Labs. Go check them out. We've been winning races all across the board this week. Can't thank everybody there enough. You guys for the broadcast. Steve and Katie, I know they're watching. It's probably one of the bigger wins of the sim racing career. So, I didn't expect it. The car wasn't all the way there, but at the end we closed it out. Sucks what happened to Garrett, but at the end of the day, it's this is why we race.
Oh, congratulations once again. Good job today. Good job over the season, and we'll see you next year.
Thanks, sir. Oh, also want to thank Austin Derbyshire, Josh Cossack. They're the guys behind the paints. They always got, whether we're the fastest car there or not, doesn't matter. We got the best looking car there every week. So thanks to those guys as well.
Congratulations. Good job.
Thanks, sir.
That was Boyd Hogan walking away, race winner, and Justin Prince has caught up with Jake Matheson.
Yes, indeed. Jake, first things first, up and down day for you, towards the front much of the race, then had your loose moments, then back up to the front. How are you feeling after this one?
I'm feeling really good about this. I mean, obviously I would have liked to, been one spot harder or one spot up at the end of it, but you can't win them all. Boyd ran a really good race, and I feel like we were really strong towards the middle of the run, and then I absolutely lost all talent and self-spun on the backstretch, and if I didn't do that, I definitely would have been in a lot better place. But what can you do? Things happen. Even the best, even the NASCAR drivers, top level people, they have their moments.
What were some of the changes you were making as the run went on to try and keep up with the changing track and the changing pace conditions? Because what Hogan mentioned made some changes and adjustments in some of the pit stops for pace. What did you do?
I'm going to be honest, I did not touch the car at all. I didn't do any adjustments chassis-wise or tire-wise. I just drove what I had. I didn't even think about adjustments. I would have been, hindsight being 2020, definitely would have been a better idea to, adjust on it a little bit. But I just drove what I had and did the best I could with it.
On that note, then, an crazy season to say the very least in NIS competition, but one of the main focal points coming up, of course, for you is the Pro Series. How would you describe your 2020, especially with the rise of you in your iRacing career, with a chance by the end of it to be able to potentially be a driver of the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series by February?
I feel like I'm more grateful than anything. Nexus Esports brought me on beginning of last year and helped me figure out, how to drive the big cars. I was just doing short track stuff for a while, and they brought me on and they taught me a lot. And how to adjust setups, how to drive the cars basically, and had a really good road to pro run. Ended up finishing top 5 in points, and just got honestly, I mean, got lucky a couple races. I think everyone has a lucky race or two, but we had a really strong runs. Then we had our lucky races where we weren't running so well, and cautions at the end kind of helped us get back up there. But going into the pro series, I'm very, very excited. I think we're gonna, just me personally, I like the Xfinity car a lot more than the truck. I'm really excited for it, and I really think we're gonna have some strong pieces.
On that note, then, anyone you want to thank for you and your run tonight in your Ford?
Yeah, of course. I want to thank Nexus Esports, of course, Norton Racing Design, Signworks of New England, iRacing for making a really good simulator. Yeah, that's it for me.
Congratulations on the run tonight to end off the NIS broadcast schedule for tonight. Still one more open on the slate Sunday morning.
Yeah, thank you again. Thanks for putting on this event, guys. It's having the NIS races streamed. I feel like has really helped out, like the interest of it. If that makes sense. People watching on YouTube be like, "Oh, cool, they're doing this. I want to be part of it." So they go race some NIS, and it makes the fields a lot better, more stacked, a lot of fun. So again, thanks for putting us on this season. It's been a lot of fun.
Congratulations on the second. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Jake Matheson, P2 tonight, Ryan.
And one more driver, Alex McCollum, who comes home in P3. But Alex could have been much, much worse than P3. What a gamble from you on that strategy to secure that podium.
Yeah, I just want to say apology to Garrett. I just got loose entry and got tight center and got into him. But I think we had a decent car. I don't think I had a car to win, but I think I had a car to finish in the top 5. But did a little strategy. I think it worked out pretty good, though.
Yeah, I think it did too. So talk about strategy decision. Why did you decide to pit when you did? Came with Salas, I believe. Didn't work out for him, but it works out well for you as well, for some reason.
Yeah, I looked at it was like 60 to go, and I had 2 sets remaining. So I'm like, well, I feel like we're going to go green for a little bit, so see if I could drive back up to the front to get some track position. Because, yeah, you need track position to run up front here. So did that, got up to the front pretty quick, and then got to the lead from everyone pitting. So was able to hang on to the top 3 to the end of the race, which played in my favor.
The restarts, they kept going in your favor, Alex. I think they were the big deciding factor in you staying up there. Was there a countdown happening between you and whoever was leading the race? Boyd was helping you out?
Yeah, Boyd kept giving me countdowns since I was on older tires, but I was just chilling in their Discord because I had no one else to talk to, so they let me come in Discord with them, so appreciate that. But overall, really good race, though.
You happy with how your NAS season's gone as a whole?
Yeah, still trying to learn how to build these cab cars. Since I'm solo, I don't really know what I'm doing yet, but we're getting there.
Hey, well, good job tonight. Good job for the season. As Justin said earlier, there's still one more race in Open tomorrow or Sunday, whenever that is for you guys. But we'll hopefully see you back next season if we come back next season. But who do you want to thank for helping me get it done all year long?
You guys for broadcasting. It was a fun season, but looking for another season next year.
Thank you very much. Good job.
Thank you.
That was Alex McCollum coming home in P3, and I think, Justin, that brings us to the end of our broadcast. Your thoughts on tonight and the season?
Crazy short track race, as to be expected when it comes to these types of races. But when it comes to the full complexion of the season, it was a pretty great one overall. You had a lot of good stories. You had a lot of drivers make names for themselves, because here's the thing with it being a broadcasted series this season. It put a lot of attention to the drivers. It also put a lot of attention to bring in potential funding, to bring in sponsors, to be able to actually market yourself to show, I did this, I can do this with your organization if they're in between positions with teams. Overall, 2020 completely, I think, changed how NIS is going to be approached from here on out. Because yes, the championship was dominated for Division 1 in the overall championship by one driver. However, after that point, you have to keep in mind there were a lot of different teams who showed they might have a lot of potential to be able to make their way into the Pro Series and or the Coke Series by 2022 when they'll have to start preparing for the next gen car. There's a lot of opportunities to grow, and these teams took that opportunity all season to do so, and in turn, we've seen, yes, a lot of the mainstays of the organizations in NIS competition rise up even more, but we also had many other teams enter the conversation to potentially be able to break through.
Plenty of Coke Series drivers came to have a play as well, pretty much testing for their Coke Series races, but they were glorified test sessions, and they put on some of the best races we saw. You know what? He did get it done. He got it down one. He got it won by 1,400 points or something in that ridiculous margin. It might have crushed just a little bit at the end. But Garrett Maines, NIS Open 2020 season champion. I think you knew a couple rounds ago, but it's pretty much official now at this point. Good job.
Really appreciate it.
Talk us through your race tonight. Pretty much the most dominant car out there. Just didn't quite fall in your favor at the end.
You're telling me. There at the beginning, I mean, I knew all I had to do was just kind of ride there. Everybody else was pushing or giving it what they had or what they thought they needed to give it to keep pace. And then eventually I just, my car came in and we pulled away. Then we started getting some short runs, and, I think Boyd was pushing his car pretty hard. And I was just kind of chilling there because he wasn't really challenging for the spot. He wasn't getting to the inside or anything. So I was just kind of riding where I was, felt comfortable. And I don't remember how it got cycled to where I think we pit and Alex and Vicente ended up staying out at some point in the race. I don't remember how that happened, but I'm honestly, I'm clueless as to why that went down the way it did. It was just completely unnecessary coming off at 2 and going into 3. Like, it wasn't even a small mistake. It was a massive mistake. I'm just blown away as to how that happened, and we had nothing but yellows after that, and there was literally nothing I could do to get back up there. I mean, one caution at a time, one position at a time, and we burned 50 laps. So definitely not how I wanted to cap off the season. I think we had the car that we needed to be able to pull off a win, but it's one of those nights.
Overall, though, obviously you're going to be happy with it. You walk away champion, and now you look forward to the Pro Series. Can't afford to let off the throttle at all. Been a bit of a confidence builder, getting through NIS this year and converting the entire year together. Putting it together, I should say.
Yeah, I'm definitely, I'm glad I ran this season. This is the first time I've done NIS Open as a full season. I ran a few races last year, but definitely gained a lot of experience on being able to build these cars. And I got to really thank Ashton Crowder, Vicente for helping test with me, Blake Cisneros, Seth Ryder, Brendan Kohler, Liam Brotherton, Michael Jeans, and all the guys at ESE, David Siltman, just for putting in all the work to be able to get there. And also, I got to give a shout out to Boyd Hogan. At the beginning of the season, he definitely helped for the first probably 10 weeks. I don't remember how it was, but definitely learned a lot from him, and it was fun. To round out a season, especially with the team switch in the middle of the season, everybody be able to put their stuff together. And I think we, the second half of the season, we grabbed probably 15 wins. It was really cool to be able to do that and have such a successful season.
Yeah, well, congratulations, Garrett. I'm sure there is more good things to come. And thank you for having a chat to us, and congratulations.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Garrett Maines, season champion. What a ride 2020 has been for the NASCAR iRacing season. But we are at the end, and we have to look forward now to what's to come. Make sure you go and like SimSpeed Esports Network over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hit subscribe over on SimSpeed TV on YouTube as well, so you don't miss any of the action. We might see you back next year. Hopefully we do. But for tonight, for the season, from myself, Ryan Jones, Justin Prince alongside Sean Ambrose earlier on in the season as well, and Jay Kennedy behind the scenes. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
iRacing right now. He's got traction, he's got everything else. Both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to him. Oh my God. Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh no, that's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?